Hello, Jaden. This is Dr. Bose. I'm giving you some video feedback on the essay that you submitted, the literacy narrative titled The Stolen Poem. Um, this is an interesting essay. I think you have a good start. And, you know, you talk about being a published writer, which is great. I really definitely respect that of you. Um, at the same time, there's a lot of structural work in this essay that's needed. And since I never really saw anything submitted before you here, um, I think that this essay could have been improved had you done a lot of the activities leading up to submitting the final essay. So let's talk about this. Okay, so the essay starts when you're trekking up to your high school English classroom. You talked about in this paragraph your um, experience in the high school English classroom, but really how it's wasn't the same as like when you felt or what you felt about in your junior high. Uh, and then you kind of jump back like some years back all the way to fourth grade, reading the Harry Potter books, your parents being irritated by your constant reading, then by your brother's constant gaming. Then you jump ahead 3 years later to seventh grade. You had the most amazing English teacher, Mr. Jeffy. Without his help, I truly would not be able to be the writer I am today. But the person. Um, okay, I I believe that that's kind of an interesting statement. I truly would not be the writer I am today, but the person. So, there's some kind of interesting details about the class, but then, I see that and I think, okay, well, that's a topic sentence. Well, how does that change you as a person? After reading this paragraph, um, I'm not really clear what that means. Okay. In the next paragraph, you talk about how you didn't usually share your work with other people. Um, and then you talk about how you had to kind of come out of your shell in your eighth grade creative writing class. You give the context of National Novel Writing Month, which is actually pretty important because you're going to mention that a little bit later, I think. Or no, you mentioned the poetry later. So again, you need to work on giving specific details. Give the one's account. If this isn't really something that's really important, then you don't need to include it. But then, if it is important, and I gather it is because at that time you wrote around 50 poems and 6 short stories, so you did a lot of writing at that time. So, but then you don't really talk much about it again. In February, well, what exactly? So this is where the timing starts to get kind of confusing. Now, are you back in high school describing your literacy experiences, or are you still in the good vibes that you felt like in junior high with your English classes? Okay, so this is when your chronology needs a lot of um, restructuring, reclarification, revision. You described this teacher, Mrs. Mahaffey, and you had mentioned another teacher earlier, and then you mentioned something about the American Library of Poetry, which is pretty important because apparently you get published. I was published at 13 in the American Library of Poetry. All right, well, that needs a heck of a lot more background than just like the one time that you describe it. I'm not quite sure what the fiasco is here. You need to make that clear that there was something happening that you disliked that was chaotic. Look up the word fiasco. And then you talk about writing and journals, and then you talk about this lost poem. Uh, I'm lost as a reader. Okay, what happened? What paper was lost for all those years? Because if it was lost, my confidence was found. I mean, it's a beautiful ending, but it's not really based in much. Okay. Okay, so that's my read through of the paper. Now going back to the assignment handout, um, keep within the word limit. Um, include conventions and delivery, name, date, section number, assignment name at the top of the document. That wasn't there. Title was there. Appropriate end punctuation was there. Okay, so you barely get in the C category. There are a few things in B that you're starting to get, like including dialogue. You start to describe people, places, and things, but not enough to the point where, as I mentioned, there's sufficient clarity to give your readers enough picture. I really strongly suggest that you go back and read all of the writing that was referenced from due date number 1 through due date number 5. There are a couple in the that are referenced in the rubric that I definitely want you to focus on, such as focusing on some kind of pattern of development, how writing works, pages 442 to 443. Writer's Help 2.0, that is the electronic guide that that you got as a result of getting the code within the student's guide. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you haven't then you haven't gained access into the book, and you haven't been able to do the reading, which actually probably explains a lot in terms of the lack of clarity and detail, more or less confusion. So, but I don't want you to think that, my critique is trying to put down the content, because, Jaden, I think this is definitely a good start, and I want you to work on, start with an A, start with everything that you're supposed to do as a writer that helps you reflect, that helps you critically engage with your literacy experiences, because, the next project, the community literacy narrative, or the community discourse analysis, is going to be doing that and a whole lot more. Okay, so that's all for now. Jaden, thank you for listening, and let me know if you have any questions. I strongly suggest that you come and visit me during my office hours, or make an appointment to see me, web conference, phone, or in person, whatever works best for you. Thanks.